Right now in room 183B at McCormick Place in Chicago, Ben Crump is walking to a microphone. In his hand is a folder. Inside that folder is what actually killed Nolan Wells. And what he is about to say at 8 a.m. is going to change everything. You need to hear this before the news repeats it back to you in a softer way, because the softer way is not the truth. The truth is in that folder. And the folder does not belong to the sheriff. It does not belong to Jackson County. It does not belong to the state of Mississippi. It belongs to a doctor in Washington, D.C., who was paid by a former NFL quarterback. So a family in Ocean Springs would not have to trust the same system that already told them, before they had even buried their son, that there was no foul play. That folder is the reason we are here this morning. Let me tell you why this autopsy is different. The state of Mississippi has one going. It is not done. Toxicology is still pending. The family was told to wait. So the family stopped waiting. Colin Kaepernick opened his own checkbook and paid out of his own pocket for a second exam. Dr. Roger Mitchell in Washington did the work. Dr. Mitchell is not a name you throw around. He used to be the chief medical examiner for the District of Columbia. When there is a case the country is watching and the local answer smells wrong, this is the doctor the family calls. This is the doctor Ben Crump calls. And this morning at 8 a.m. Central Time, in front of the 117th NAACP National Convention, the doctor's findings become the first real medical facts anyone outside of a lab has seen in this case. Ben Crump has already told the press exactly what he wants that folder to answer. One question, just one. Did Nolan have physical injuries to his body beyond drowning? That is the sentence. Read it again. Because if the word drowning is not the whole sentence, this case just changed. Now I have to say something hard, and I want you to stay with me. Crump has been honest about the problem. He said it out loud. He said, you want stuff from the first autopsy because they had the body closer to the time, and they got the body almost 6 days later. 6 days. 6 days in the Gulf, 6 days in salt water, 6 days of heat. You do not need a medical degree to understand what that means. A body loses a lot in 6 days. Soft tissue changes, skin changes, small bruises that would show up bright on day 1 can be almost invisible by day 6. This is the honest fight the family took on. They knew what they were getting, they took it anyway. Because a partial answer from an independent doctor is worth more to them right now than a full answer from a system they already believe failed them. But here is the part almost nobody is telling you. There is a lot that 6 days in the water cannot erase. And this is where the folder gets scary for whoever needs it to stay quiet. Bones do not lie in 6 days. If Nolan's hyoid bone was broken, the folder is going to say so. The hyoid is a small bone in your neck. It is very hard to break by accident. When it breaks, it almost always means one thing, and doctors know what that one thing is. If there is a skull fracture, the folder will say so. Fresh water in the lungs versus salt water in the lungs versus no water in the lungs at all, those tell 3 completely different stories about how a person ended up in the ocean. Cuts on the hands and forearms, defensive wounds, still show up on bone and cartilage 6 days later. Marks around the wrists or ankles, blunt force patterns on the skull, all of that is still readable. That is what Dr. Mitchell was looking at. That is what is in the folder. And that is why the whole country is watching a room in Chicago at 8 in the morning. Now I want to walk you through the part that matters the most, because most channels are going to skip past this and go straight to the drama. Do not let them, because this one detail is the single biggest medical question in the whole case. Wet lungs versus dry lungs. Here's what that means in plain words. If a person drowns, their lungs fill with water. They breathe it in while they are still alive. That is what drowning is. When the doctor opens the chest, the lungs are heavy. They are wet. You can see it. You can weigh it. There is a specific pattern to it. That is what the sheriff's early statement is asking you to believe. He drowned. But if a person is already dead before their body goes into the water, the lungs do not fill. They stay dry. The heart is not pumping. The person is not breathing. The body just floats in or gets pushed in, and the water stays outside the lungs. When the doctor opens the chest in that case, the answer is completely different. The answer is, this person did not drown here. This person was already gone before the water touched them. That is the sentence in the folder that ends this case one way or the other, wet or dry, drowned or dumped, and you are about to hear which one it is. I want you to picture the room, because the room itself is part of the story. This is not happening at a courthouse in Jackson County. It is not happening in Ocean Springs. It is not happening at a Mississippi press conference with a sheriff standing behind a podium reading a prepared statement. It is happening 800 miles away at McCormick Place West in Chicago at the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People's National Convention. Derek Johnson, the president of the NAACP, is at the podium. The parents of Nolan Wells, Nick Wells, and Christine Wansley are in the front row. They flew there. Think about that for 1 second. A family from Mississippi flew 800 miles to hear how their son died. They did not hear it at home. They did not hear it from their sheriff. They did not hear it from their state. They heard it in a convention hall in Illinois from a doctor in Washington, paid for by a football player from California. That geography is the message. That geography tells you where the trust is and where the trust is gone. This is not a Jackson County matter anymore. This is a national civil rights case, and the choice of venue is Ben Crump telling every camera in the room, we do not trust the answer we were going to get down there. I need you to sit with what Christine Wansley is doing in that front row. She is a mother. She buried her son on Monday. On Tuesday, she stood behind Al Sharpton at a press conference. And on Wednesday morning, this morning at 8 a.m., she's going to sit in a chair in a convention center in Chicago and listen to a doctor read out loud in front of the entire country what was done to her baby. She said, at the funeral, one sentence I cannot get out of my head. She said, his light will continue to shine through us all. That is a mother who is trying to hold a country together while her own heart is broken in half. That is a mother who has not slept a full night since the 4th of July. That is a mother who watched a dot on a map move across her phone screen while her son was missing. And now she is going to hear a doctor tell her out loud what that dot meant. If you are a parent watching this right now, you know the specific pain of not knowing. You know the way not knowing eats at you at 3 in the morning. You know it is worse than the knowing. And you know that the moment the doctor opens his mouth this morning, she does not get to be a mother in private anymore. She has to be a mother in front of the whole country. That is what is happening at 8 a.m. That is who is sitting in that front row. And now you understand why this folder matters. It is not a document. It is the first time in almost 3 weeks that anyone with real authority is going to say something about how Nolan Wells actually died. And the person saying it is not the sheriff, is not the state, is not the office that already told the public before the body was even examined properly that there was no foul play. Remember that phrase, no foul play. It was said before there was an investigation. Al Sharpton called it out from the pulpit on Monday. He said, we cannot have someone in law enforcement saying there was no foul play before there was an investigation. That single sentence is what set this whole week on fire. If the folder this morning says drowning, no injuries, no signs of struggle, then Sheriff Ledbetter's early statement gets a little bit of cover. Not clean cover, he still spoke too soon, but some cover. If the folder says anything else, anything at all beyond drowning, then the story you thought you knew is not the story. And every friend who was on that island, every person who left the marina without him, every phone that has been quiet, every mouth that has stayed shut for 3 weeks is now inside a very different case. I want to be clear about something so nobody in the comments twists it. Nobody watching this video, nobody making this video, and nobody in that room in Chicago knows what the folder says yet. That is the whole point. We are all going to find out together at 8 a.m. Central, which is 9 a.m. Eastern, which is 6 a.m. on the West Coast. Set an alarm, because this is one of those moments where the truth arrives on a schedule, and the schedule is this morning. Now let me tell you what happens after the folder opens, because a lot of people are going to think the reveal is the finish line. It is not. The reveal is the starting gun. Here is what is still coming. The state autopsy is still not done. Toxicology, which tests for drugs, for alcohol, for anything that might have been in Nolan's body that night, is still pending on the state side. That result can take weeks. That result can also change everything again. Because if toxicology comes back showing something Nolan was not known to use, then the question becomes who gave it to him and did he know he was taking it? Then there is the phone. Ben Crump and the Jackson County District Attorney have agreed that Nolan's phone will be examined jointly, not one side after the other, both sides in the same room at the same time. That is unusual. That is what happens when trust is fully gone. That phone is coming. Then there is a grand jury. If the findings this morning support what the family has been saying since the beginning, that Nolan did not simply drown, then the pressure to convene a grand jury goes from strong to overwhelming. And a grand jury does not need a sheriff's permission. Then there is the FBI. The Bureau has already confirmed it is investigating interstate threats received by people connected to this case. That is a federal crime. That runs on a completely separate track from anything Mississippi is doing. That is not going away. So the 8 a.m. reveal is not the ending. It is chapter 1 of a book the family has been trying to open for 3 weeks. I want to end this on a question, and I want you to answer it in the comments before the news does. If the folder in Ben Crump's hand this morning says something other than drowning, what do you think happened on Horn Island that day? What is the version of the story that fits the phone being left behind, the keys being left behind, the 911 call never coming from the friends, and now a body that may have injuries, a first autopsy, either missed or a state autopsy, is somehow taking longer to confirm than an independent one that started 6 days later? I am not asking you to guess. I am asking you to notice. Because right now, while you are watching this, Ben Crump is walking into a room in Chicago holding a folder. And a mother from Ocean Springs is sitting in the front row waiting to hear what happened to her son. And a country that has been asking questions for 3 weeks is about to get a piece of the answer. Stay on this channel. When the folder opens, we open it with you. Subscribe so you get the state autopsy the second it drops. Turn the bell on for the phone review. Leave a comment with the one question you want answered before this day is over. Because today is the day the silence starts breaking. At 8 a.m. Central in room 183B, a doctor from Washington is about to say a sentence out loud that a family from Mississippi has been waiting 3 weeks to hear. And when he says it, you and I are going to be in the room together.